Hello there, you awakening wonders. Thanks for joining us on Stay Free with Russell Brand. For the first 15 minutes, we will be available with all of you on YouTube. Those of you that come here for truth, those of you that come here for hope, those of you who come here because you want to be part of a movement. You don't want to participate in the entropy and despair of a culture that's devouring itself, a legacy media that's lost its way, that wants to do nothing but annihilate and destroy, that's lost its vision, that's lost the light of the Lord, that looks to you, that looks to me, that looks to us collectively to bring about a new order, a new awakening. And when I say new order, I don't mean some new global order of centralized authority and power. I mean decentralized power. I mean a little old thing called democracy, where you have the power to control your own life, where you are free. Your freedom isn't criminalized. That's one of the stories we're going to be talking about. Surveillance is on the up. They're tracking your DNA. They are criminalizing all of us, even Gareth Roy.
No.
One of the least criminal people I've ever had the good fortune to meet. We're going to be talking about Trump's potential assassination, hyperbole or possibility. Let me know in the comments, guys. Do you think it's a real possibility? If you're watching us on Rumble right now, why don't you press the red button and join us in the locals chat like Blessed Old Bird and Thomas Beard and Taz Being and Jim Earthsea. They're chatting away in there. They're expressing their free speech, and later we'll have Freech, where your freedom of speech will be broadcast live. We've got a fantastic guest on the show as well, Bari Weiss, one of the great Twitter file journalists, or X-Files. That's the wrong music. That's Twilight Zone.
You do Doctor Who then, weren't you?
Bari Weiss, we've chatted to her before the show. She is ready to rock. She's even sorted out the height of her chair. She's perfectly framed. She's ready to go. There's going to be fantastic revelations. We're going to be talking about Oliver Anthony. Why is it that he's become the scourge of the left? Why has it become a problem to talk up for ordinary people?
He's so goddamn catchy, that's why.
He's so bloody
can't stand
catchy.
it.
I'd just like to curl up in that beard, wouldn't you? I'd like to lay my eggs in that ginger nest, wouldn't you?
Oh, yes.
Wouldn't you? Hey, if you happen to be in the UK, I'm doing 5 very intimate shows in September. There's a link in the description, tells you where to come. There's one in London even. You'll love it. And Wolverhampton, Plymouth. There's a bunch of places. But anyway, I don't get bogged down in all that. We've got a lot to talk about. Once we leave YouTube and we're exclusively on Rumble, we're going to be telling you a thing or two about the Swedes. There's more to Sweden than Volvo, saunas and ABBA, because it turns out that their approach to the pandemic has led to fewer deaths. Now, isn't that astonishing? Because wasn't their approach do nothing?
It was something akin to that.
What we could do is lock everyone in their house, make sure people wear masks, they stand these distances apart, they take all of these injections. Well, what about if, we just let people do what they like? That won't work, you mad idiots. Waterloo! What I say is we'll look at that, but obviously with the WHO having the power that they have over the guidelines on YouTube, and I love you 6.5 million awakening wonders. I love you and you feel that love. You know this is not the dumb, hollow, empty communications that you get from the mainstream. You know we're moving to a greater frequency. You know that it's our job to fuse spirituality with politics, and new inclusive spirituality that looks for alliances rather than new forms of destruction, that sees past their mainstream lies, that notices and understands their agenda and moves immediately beyond it. We're going to have to do that stuff, though, in the other place, in the land of Rumble, where we are free to be whoever we are, united in our free speech to come together, not to drive people apart. Let's have a look at a lovely little story on Fox News now steel yourselves, because this is about a person having an accident on an aeroplane, as I understand. Now, we've all made mistakes on airplanes. I was asked to leave. Yes, I was asked to leave one once. They threw me off it. It was still on the tarmac, fortunately. So
it wasn't for the same reason, was it?
Actually, sort of. No, it wasn't, because this is about... Have you heard this story about the diarrhea on an aeroplane?
That's right.
We've had snakes on a plane. Now we've got SHIT up a plane. You dirty pigs. Let's have a look at the mainstream reporting on this.
Talk about an uncomfortable flight. So here's what went down, y'all. A Delta flight was going from Atlanta to...
Firstly, I like her news style.
Yeah.
Don't, because she's calling you y'all on the news. Do you like that, America? Is that the sort of thing you like on Labour Day? I like it, to be called y'all. Because, in England on the news, they don't go, all right, mate, news coming up. They talk to you, firstly, like you're a moron, and that you're very lucky to be getting this. Hello, this is England. Here's some news. Sit down, shut up, have a cup of tea. And if you still have a genital, snip it off and leave it outside. We'll drive it away in a lorry, you wanker. Which isn't a swear word in some nations.
Interesting.
Y'all.
Barcelona, when all of a sudden a passenger got what I like to call the bubble guts. Crew members called it an onboard medical issue.
Bubble guts.
Which was reportedly a case of, quote,
That's them connecting the world at Delta, is it?
Yeah, I like the idea that these are the people that caused it. All of them.
We had bubble guts, y'all! This little gang of bubble guts. So,
Every single one of them.
oh, God, I'm sorry. I don't know who started it. It was the fella over on the right, but we shook hands. We should have been keeping some social distance. It's all up the plane.
Diarrhea all the way through the plane. Imagine that. Well, now the past...
All the way through.
I don't know how much, like, what constitutes, like, if someone has diarrhea on a plane, it's going to ruin their seat and their aisle, and if you're in coach, the aisle behind and aisle front. In front of it. I'd say it's a free aisle issue.
Yes.
All up the plane, that means they've tried to go to the toilet.
Yes.
It's gone wrong. And imagine the dreadful panic of being in a fuselage. The indignity of that. Oh, excuse me. Oh, no, it's gone wrong. Don't tell my wife. That's a really humiliating thing down that aisle.
Yeah, running up and down, scuttling up and down that aisle.
Scuttling and sprinkling as you go. Trouser legs.
Oh, the trouser legs,
The trouser legs, making its way down. Now, how would you feel towards that person? Would you be a good Christian or good Muslim or whatever your thing is and go, oh, you know, I welcome thee?
No.
Or, you're a bit more like, you are a pariah! Get out of our community! Like that.
Yeah.
Move them.
You'd send them. What would you do if they were in first? You'd send them right back to economy, wouldn't you?
First things first. It's economy for you. No, I'd say rubber bands around the ankles or bicycle clips. Get them sealed up, I'd say, like trunk. Then it's a sick bag taped over the offending orifice.
Who's doing that job?
I'd say that's got to be the co-pilot. Because the pilot, you need him to concentrate.
Sure, okay.
Don't you? But this is a let's roll situation. This is where you want everyone on the plane mobilised towards this real and present dirty threat.
Danger.
Passengers were about 2 hours into the flight when they had to turn around the whole plane and just go on back home. In a recording, the pilot told air traffic control this was a biohazard issue.
Biohazard is slightly grandiose. What I feel like is, doesn't it show the hubris of our kind that since the Wright brothers we have conquered the air, but all it takes is one person with a dodgy belly and the two bob bits and the squirts, and suddenly aeroplanes are being brought down. It sort of shows you the fragility of civilization and the hubris of our kind. Civilization lays upon the planet, and by the mighty winds of God, or a passenger, it could be coughed off into brown oblivion.
Do you think that's what got Prigozhin last week?
Prigozhin, like, oh no, Putin, he's got me by the short and dirties. Oh, it's game over. Night, night. It's the brown terror. Goodbye. I've got myself the bubble guts.
Negative. It's just a biohazard issue. We've had a passenger who had diarrhea all the way through the airplane, so they wanted to come back to him.
All the way through the airplane. Now, I, at this point, think there's some personal responsibility on behalf of the passenger. You just can't go marching up and down the aisles like that. It should be confined.
It's almost like they enjoyed it at this point, like it was a dirty protest.
Now, I don't know where that coronavirus came from, but you should have been able to contain it in the Wuhan lab or wet market, could be either, area. You don't want people giddily skidding out of the labs and out of the wet markets, running down the back caves, running down the town, getting in the airplanes. What you've got yourself there is a super spreader event. That is a super spreader event right there, a one-person super spreader. Dirty devils.
They had to carry the man out on a stretcher.
God, I shouldn't.
Well, that's, I mean, do you know what I think that is? That person is a man so humiliated that he's sort of had to fully
pretend it's a, I'm dying.
Oh, no, I can't live like this. But he's actually been filled by shame.
Yes.
And I think maybe, under the circumstances, if you're temporarily the member of a 500-person community, all airlocked together, because you know on that plane, you're breathing that stuff. That's unavoidable. Isn't it?
There is fecal matter entering your system at that point,
you're all part of one. And in a sense, we could extrapolate that onto the planet. We are all civilians, citizens of one planet, and we should be sharing it together. That does not mean there should be one centralised government. There should be localisation, and people that need the toilet on a good bellyache on the plane. I'm afraid them people, I'd say you should deal with that yourself with a cork or a thumb.
Right.
So one person problem, solve it yourself, like turn yourself into a teapot. Solve it. Send up your best guy. This guy, he's not got what it takes. This fella.
You should do the announcement on the plane before they take off.
All right, now listen, you lot. In the event of some nonsense and the mask comes down, don't freak out. That could be nothing. Remember, you got that whistle in case you end up in the sea and everything. Don't take off your high-heeled shoes. If you had a poo yourself like a pig in the streets, get that thumb, the thing that separates us from the animals, and use it so you don't become like a sky monkey pooping your whole way up the aisle. Now, let's get on with some proper freedom and some proper news, because Tucker predict. Let us know. Do you want to see Tucker talking about the potential assassination of Donald Trump and how that contrasts with Maddow's prediction that if he becomes president, he will elect himself president for life, or nominate himself or designate himself president for life? Or do you want to see this thing with Kamala Harris and Big Pharma and the Big Pharma drug prices? Because we've got this brilliant story where all of the claims of the Biden administration that they're going to control drug prices are, in a sense, erroneous and false, aren't they?
Yeah, they're certainly massively exaggerated, and the way in which they congratulate themselves at this historic, I think Kamala Harris says at one point, this historic situation where we've managed to beat Big Pharma again is shown to be absolute load of rubbish.
Yeah, they're so a lot of people are saying both Trump and drugs, and some people are saying they want it at the same time. But what kind of evening is that, you crazy young people? Like this, this is, I think, extraordinary, because what we're being offered, you should see the giddy hyperbole and fanfare that accompanies this story. Let's go to the mainstream media reporting of the event. Kamala Harris, I say, she's making this and introducing this policy, honestly, as if it's seismic, apocal, and as if it's going to change American life forever. Proudly announcing that no senior citizen should have to choose between putting food in their fridge and buying drugs. Meanwhile, dear Joe Biden there looks like he couldn't cope with either. Filling a fridge or buying drugs could reduce him.
They just took him off a plane, apparently.
I had a hell of a time up there. One or two other people complained, and then I was on a standing-up lay-down bed on the way out. It's the best trip of my life. Let's have a look at this bit of mainstream reporting. She's already pleased as punch, isn't she? Right, about what she's about to announce. But, like, I mean, what is the reality of this policy? What's being claimed is that Big Pharma is being railed in. 86% of Americans want caps on drug prices. That's a call for more regulation of Big Pharma. But how can you ever regulate Big Pharma when Big Pharma funds both political parties to the degree that it does? When the FDA is funded by the pharmaceutical companies that it's supposed to legislate against. And even in the, not necessarily legislate against, but control and regulate. And particularly after the Purdue family, Purdue Sackler disaster, and no proper convictions or meaningful changes after the opioid crisis in your country, how can we go beaming to the podium making grandiose claims of meaningful change at a time like this? Wait till you hear what this amounts to. It's a handful of drugs that have no generic competition, that have been available on the market for 9 years. It's astonishing, because you'd think what's being announced is some kind of forever erection or some glorious new utopia accessible to all, but it amounts to a pipsqueak fart on a plane, and not the kind of disaster we were describing earlier.
Good afternoon. Please have a seat. Good afternoon. It's a room full of leaders. Well, thank you.
Well, I can see one person immediately to your left who's not qualified to lead anybody. Look at him, the poor sausage. And I'm talking about Joe Biden there, not the other fellow who I believe does have a medical condition that exempts him from the kind of critiques that we freely offer Joe Biden.
Thank you, everyone, for being here and for all the work that you have done leading up to today. I want to thank, of course, our nation's champion, President Biden, for your leadership and commitment to lowering costs for working families.
This is, I think, what people mean when they say that the mainstream media are out of touch and that the government are out of touch. This is not the correct tone for what's happening in American public life right now. There's a deterioration in the standards of living. I think Americans are feeling persecuted, penalized, struggling with the ongoing war, energy crisis, energy prices, grocery prices. And to hear your vice president say this is the champion of America before introducing a highly diluted, weak booster shot of a policy that's been tested on less than 8 mouses, if you ask me, seems like the worst kind of political rhetoric. But let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think in the chat. No Duganoku says this is the kind of deflective doublespeak that we've got used to. Brilliant. True Chimera says no wonder she can't handle her life. They've got the other guy to make Biden look young, says someone. But remember, that dude ain't well, so he's exempted from any critiques, because we looked into it, because you know me, I would have been looking for a joke all over the place, but that fella is actually unwell and deserves naught but compassion. But Joe Biden there, is he a champion? Is that what you guys think? Let me know. Let me know in the comments, guys.
In every way. And thank you to all of the members of Congress for the work that you have done and continue to do to help us achieve this type of progress.
Your tireless work there.
Yeah, thank you for all that lobbying money that you took from the big pharma industry.
$8.6 million Joe Biden took. That must have been so... How did you even carry it with your fragile little arms? Hunter's laptop under one arm, a big bundle of money under the other. No corruption, nothing to see here. And I'm certainly not allegedly that there is any corruption, because there's sort of no proof. But I think it's worth noting that listen to this. In all, the Build Back Better drug pricing framework is not a bad outcome for the pharmaceutical industry. Most drugs won't be affected by negotiations, the analysis said, and ultimately they entice drug makers to boost their products' launch prices. Pharmaceutical companies in the US raised drug prices 1,186 times in 2022. The pharmaceutical and health products industries spent, get ready for this important piece of news, and let me know in the chat if you think this is relevant to this story, $263 million on lobbying in Washington. And let me know, should that practice be banned? Why are we having these conversations about Trump and Biden and Republicanism versus the Democrats when we know that unless that is altered, you are going to get a comparable paradigm no matter who's in office? Ban it. Ban it today. Change it right now. Don't accept those donations. Why is that impossible? Why is that implausible? Let me know in the chat in the comments if you think that would make a difference and if you have any hope that such a thing could ever occur. In 2021, Democrats accounted for roughly 60% of the $177 million in pharmaceutical industry lobbying and campaign donations. Do you think that kind of leverage? You'd think she was announcing endless orgasms for everyone. It's an extraordinary piece of rhetoric. Let's see how it plays out.
So we are here today with the firm belief that in the United States of America, no senior should ever have to choose between whether they are able to fill a prescription
or whether or not their son works for Burisma, or whether or not they have a hell of a time with their hobbies.
Or fill their refrigerator with food. But for you, yes.
Yeah, yes. No, actually, yes, clapping.
Because we know for years, far too many of our seniors, millions of our seniors across the country, have struggled to afford their prescriptions. And too many of our seniors risked their health as they may have delayed to refill their prescription, or they cut their pills in half to try and stretch out the length of time that they could take their medication.
One of the things that's astonishing, as revealed by David Sirota in his article in The Lever, is that the National Academy of Sciences tells the story that the federal government spent $100 billion to subsidize the research on every single one of the 200-plus drugs approved for sale in the United States between 2010 and 2016. Those subsidies, of course, that's your money. That's your taxpayer dollar. Because we, the public, invested early in these medicines, we reduced the R&D, research and development costs for pharmaceutical companies. Therefore, on the back end, the public should have received some sort of return in the form of affordable prices. So this shouldn't be applauded. This should be, we're so sorry this has taken so long and that it's not as good as we initially promised, and it's clearly been radically altered and re-legislated by the drug companies themselves in order to not ultimately affect their profits. That's what the speech should look like. But look at what it does look like, and then ask yourself why populism is on the rise, why figures like RFK and Donald Trump are so effective. This is the alternative. This is the problem.
So since we took office, President Biden and I and our administration has taken historic action to cut the cost of prescription medication for our seniors. We capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. We will cap the total cost of prescription drugs at $2,000 a year.
So sometimes when I watch it, even as a person who spends a lot of time thinking about these issues, looking at this stuff, I kind of start to get baffled and think, oh no, maybe it is good, because they seem so certain. It's truly Orwellian.
Well, look, even $2,000 a year is a huge amount of money for a great many people in America. And when you're paying 1,000 times more than people are paying in other countries for the very same drugs,
1,000 times more.
And when she talks about historic, you know, what she's not talking about is the historic reasons why we're in the situation in the first place that involved the Clinton administration, Joe Biden himself, and Obama in making sure that we're in the situation that we are now.
Let's read that segment from Sirota's article in The Lever, which of course is a left-wing publication, but the analysis is fantastic. This is why we so strongly believe that we have to look for new alliances, new systems, new narratives. In the mid-90s, that business axiom was tossed out when drug lobbyists persuaded the Clinton administration to repeal rules that allowed federal officials to require government-subsidized drugs to be offered to Americans at a reasonable price. So Clinton changed that legislation. A few years later, Congress, with then Senator Joe Biden's help, so look, check this out, Biden voted down legislation to reinstate these rules. That was an opportunity missed, deliberately missed, and denied. And later, the Obama administration rejected House Democrats' request that federal officials at least provide guidelines to government agencies about how they can exercise the remaining powers to combat drug price gouging. So this is a story that's been presented to you as a great victory, as a delivery on an election promise, as a victory for the American people. It's nothing of the sort. It's masking ineptitude and corruption, and you don't need me to tell you that. You know that already, right? Let me know in the comments. If you're watching us on Rumble right now, give us a rumble. Press the red button and join us over in Locals. Become an awakened wonder. You get so much extra content, and the first 1,000 of you that sign up get something even greater than that. A pair of Awakened Wonder underpants, and these are guaranteed to not let you down at 30,000 feet. These guys stay tight. They keep everything in the right place. You'd be up there right now in that Delta aisle with nothing more than a quiet, dignified fart, or as I call him, Joe Biden. Now, if you're watching us on YouTube, click the link in the description. Join us over on Rumble. We've got Bari Weiss joining us there, one of the great journalists that broke the Twitter file story. She's going to be talking to us about a fantastic event and debate that she's hosting in LA pretty soon. We're going to be looking at CNN questioning Fauci's masks deal. That's fantastic. You're going to love all of this stuff. And remember, if you're in the UK, handful of intimate gigs. There's a link in the description that you can join me for. But you've got to join us over on Rumble. Make the journey. Make the transition. Get over there with us.